Hi,
Welcome,
Calliese.
Alan. We are so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
I'm delighted to be here.
oh, I know. Oh, I feel like I want to say a lot of people know you, but I don't know if a lot of people know you. So, just in case, if anybody is new or doesn't know Alan, Alan is pretty much like I'd say the advocacy manager for Favor UK.
Yep.
Alan, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this role?
Yeah, so my name's Alan McCrone. I've been working with Favour for 4 years now. I came in right at the start of um, the advocacy project, so I was involved in setting that up. Uh, I have a background in youth work, children's work and families. Just, I think through my professional career, I've been involved in sort of dealing with various types of advocacy, various types of outreach as well. So, yeah, I decided after COVID that it was time for a change. So, I applied for a job here. Yeah, it was just that's how I come into the sector, I guess.
Yeah. How long have you been with Favor UK now? It's been a couple of years.
I started in November 2021. So
Yeah.
been here it was 4 years. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
coming up in 4 years, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, can you, I mean, and I'm sure this has changed over the years, but, and I'm sure it changes daily depending on what's happening, but can you kind of put us in the seat of Alan? What does a day in the life of Alan look like in your role?
Right, okay. So obviously, manage the day-to-day running of the advocacy service. So, but I'm also involved in client advocacy. So my day can be pretty much split between, I guess, the two functions. So yesterday, I can maybe give you a bit of an insight into what I was doing then. So yesterday, my morning was involved sort of dealing with a couple of services for some of our clients, trying to sort of push some of that casework on. I think I had to do, or I'm in the process of making a complaint about the treatment that someone has received. So I sort of started to work on that. And then I got a phone call from another client, and that was a whole new issue that sort of kind of restructured my day, if you like.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I'm also like when I say manage the service, a lot of the time I'm trying to look for funding, applying for funding, doing funding returns. So all kind of very necessary when you're trying to grow a charity. Um, I've been setting up or have set up a sort of advocacy volunteering service here as well. So that involved a lot of work getting off the ground and making sure that we were like PVG compliant and stuff like that. I'm also the organisation's PVG signatory, so I've got to make sure that we have got policies in place that we adhere to, such as sort of policy surrounding safeguarding and stuff like that. So that's kind of what my day is involved. I try and get through as much as I can. But generally, it's a mix between those two things, sort of client work um, and sort of
The
trying to,
admin.
yeah,
Yeah, the
admin.
admin behind the scenes, right? To get it
Yeah,
done.
I know. And
I guess
some, I mean, it's a necessary evil, I guess, the admin, but
yeah, yeah,
it's,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I guess that's like a little plug. If anybody has some funding opportunities that may be able to help out Alan, please reach out.
give me some money.
He would definitely like love the support to grow his team. I'm
Yeah,
hearing when you talk about it, I'm hearing a lot of adaptability and flexibility. Like you said, another case came up and then it's having to pivot and adapt. What are some
yeah.
of the, if you don't mind me asking, what are some of the things that just examples for clarity so we understand what are some of the concerns or the things that you are advocating for? Like, what are people needing advocacy for?
So people come to us when they've got a problem. That's the basic
Excellent.
sort of tenet of what we do. We don't get people who are having a positive experience within I guess the treatment sector. So it would be I guess the main issue is access to preferred treatment options. That's
Wow. Yeah.
most of our clients come to us to say that either they've been blocked from something, or they don't believe that there's been a sort of rational decision made on their behalf for them, and it's never really been explained. That is probably the bulk of our work. So it's trying to, like, I guess, be that conduit between a service and an individual,
Hmm.
to try and at least like sort problems. And I'm like really amazed that so many problems are caused due to lack of just basic communication.
Oh, of course. I'm
Do
not
you know?
surprised there.
It continues to amaze me. Like it really does. So many problems can just be kind of nipped in the bud at the beginning with a phone call or something. But some and in my world that really exists. So yeah, we deal with that. We also deal with people who are sort of new to this whole world in terms of they're in active addiction, but they want to start the process through to recovery. So they don't know where to go, and a lot of the people that we see in that context are sort of they've been isolated for years. So it's no wonder they don't know where to go and like what it is that they want essentially as well. Most people want options. That's the thing. They want to know what the options are. So I think we sort of occupy a space where we're pretty good at that. And it's about listening to people. We talk about outreach, and I guess the central tenet of any sort of outreach work that you do is just about listening to people, meeting them where they are. And I come from a background in youth work as well. So a lot of the work that we done there was a sort of diversionary work, and it was work to sort of start at the beginning. I think, and to try and at least make sure that the kids that we were working with weren't getting into trouble or weren't getting into situations that they didn't want to be in. So I don't I don't really see a lot of that sort of early intervention work coming from services and places like that,
Interesting.
statutory services. What I
Yeah.
think happens is that they seem to be set up to react to
I say that all the time.
sorry, they're not set up to react to anything other than immediate crisis, and even then, it's sometimes too late to actually do effective, meaningful work with someone. So that's, I think, just
Yeah.
remind me of the question
No,
again.
that was great. That was
I went
great.
off on a
Because
bit of a
I
tangent there.
think, no, you're good. Because I mean, we talk about all the time is like, I like that you mentioned the preventative measures in place too. Because I mean, we talk about generations, family and things like that. And that's preventative measures. And it's like, are we actually set up to respond at different stages and phases versus just react to the immediate crisis? Like
Yeah.
it's that cycle, right? Of just reacting and putting fires out, putting fires out.
I think that I think if you look at the space sector, whatever you want to call it, particularly in Scotland, we have a really good network of geographical grassroots recovery networks.
Mhm.
So obviously, if you're talking about how you get to someone who needs help, outreach in that case, and even engaging with people, it shouldn't really be it shouldn't be generic. So it shouldn't be a generic sort of thing when it comes to that. It should exist, and it does exist in the Scottish context, I guess. With sort of dealing with people locally, and they're good. The existing recovery networks, people doing good work for free. If it's peer support, if it's running community cafes, or if it's doing something that occupies a space
Yeah,
that
definitely.
can actually like catch someone. I always sort of find that really positive because I've been in services, and I've seen like community groups and individuals who are working, I guess, up and down the country, and they're focusing on trying to make their communities better and individual lives better as well. So they're actively working towards an end, if you get what I mean. That end is to try and catch as many people as they can. So they create communities in the occupied space and they connect with people wanting support, but they can, they're very good, I guess, at catching like, folk that don't.
The people that
Um,
fall through the cracks, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
often, like what I see as well, these places, the bulk of the time, a lot of folks' first experience with what recovery can look like will be sort of outside that sort of formal clinical setting. So it's out with like a alcohol and drug recovery service that's run by the local authority, or it's out with some kind of NHS establishment, I guess. So that's, I think, that's something that's done really well in this country, and we try and link in with that as a sort of third sector organisation.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah,
It sounds like a lot of relationship building too. It sounds like what you're talking about is having lots of relationships
yeah,
and
yeah,
being able to connect people to the right resources and supports they need versus, just what's there.
yeah. So I think that's something that sort of working in the third sector, obviously, there's issues working in the third sector, lack of money, resources, that sort of thing. But I think what the third sector can do incredibly well and has done is that we understand sort of the intersectional nature of like some of the issues organisations are able to sort of. So if we talk about what intersects with addiction, you could be like looking at mental health, homelessness, criminal
Mhm.
justice services as well, and that's where I guess the third sector can be quite dynamic and it responds pretty well to sort of trying to develop a wraparound service for people because I've dealt with clients where um, might be addiction plus homelessness,
Yeah.
and I mean, with the best will in the world, you can try and sort somebody's addiction out, and you can try and like get them the help that they need. But if they're homeless, it's like that needs dealing with as well. So
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to be on the street at
yeah,
night and be able to manage your feelings and emotions and like not want to use, I'm sure, to mass like
yeah,
this.
yeah,
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 beautiful. Well said. I think, it's something, you mentioned, which we talk about all the time too, is really meeting people where they're at. And that looks very different across, institutions, countries, organizations.
yeah.
What does it actually look like in practice to meet people where they're at?
So it's, I guess, I think what I would say with that is that it's about it can be two things really. Geographically, just meeting somebody where they are is like going to them, and but it's also about like understanding that you're meeting them in a kind of their current headspace, if you like. You're meeting them.
Like the emotional, psychological,
Yeah,
physical
yeah,
environment. Yeah.
yeah. So that's what it means to me. It's not always about like being physically present, standing in front of them. It's about
Mm,
like understanding them when they phone you or you phone a client or whatever. And it's about just, I guess, understanding that their situation is fluid. They're not getting better; they're getting worse. And just trying to understand like what their, I guess, their immediate needs are, kind of medium term as well. So I always try and look at the bigger picture when it comes to clients in that respect. I'll you know,
mhm.
my advocacy is sort of based on trying to not be involved long term, and part of that
Yeah.
is understanding where people are and what they're experiencing. And if you can do that, you can at least try and get them the help that they need at that moment.
Yeah. And it's like you mentioned, you said earlier, most of the time, the people that you are supporting, they have a problem already. So they're calling you and they're already frustrated, right? They're already like upset or something like that because their needs haven't been met. And so
Yeah,
you're having to manage all of that as well.
there's a whole issue around, like, I think I spoke about isolation as well. So if you're meeting someone where they're at, they're isolated, that can become a bigger issue. You know, it's about trying to go to them rather than them coming to you all the time.
Yeah.
I always remember just after I had started working here, we had a client, and I do sort of tell a story, but he was all right with me telling it. So he was. If we're discussing meeting people where they are in their current situation, I went for a coffee with this client, and we went to Starbucks, but he didn't know what to get because
Oh,
he didn't know that there was like different types of coffee. That's how
yeah.
long he had been isolated. He was like asking
Wow.
me, "What is this?" But that was like, uh, you know, crazy that it gets to that point. So meeting someone where they are is just like, it's kind of about that as well.
Yeah.
You know, letting them, told them what,
Yeah.
what a cappuccino was. But that's what I think, about if we're looking at really truly practicing positive outreach. It's about that. It's about pulling people away from what they're doing, and getting them into a better place. And even if that can just involve a conversation, going for a
Yeah.
coffee, even help filling out a form and stuff like that. It's the initial chat that, or the initial, sort of interaction that people. That's the kind of start of the journey, I guess.
I think it's very interesting because a lot of times when we talk about outreach or meeting people where they're at, a lot of people think about these big ideas, where I'm like, what you're highlighting, Alan, is really it's that humanness connection. It's
Mm.
those little moments that make really big impacts.
Yeah, and it seems like, I think it gets, overlooked because it's so simple and because it's so effective. Um, but there's a lot of, obviously, there's a lot of theory and a lot of, stuff that goes into talking about what addiction is, and there's been study millions of studies probably done on it, but I think people underestimate the impact that can actually have. Just
Yeah.
talking to somebody and meeting them on the human level as well.
Yeah, and that's it, that connection. I think I think it's really interesting because you might have already kind of answered this other question that I have down, but I put how can we create systems that see and value people in the earliest stages of change?
Okay. Um, it's a big question, that.
I think it's kind of what you just said though, like even the smallest little moments,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, I mean, sorry, my screen just went down there. 2 seconds. Um, so the question's about how. Just repeat that. Sorry.
how can we create systems that see and value people in the earliest stages of change?
Yeah. So I think systems probably need to be, created with trust and respect as the sort of
Mm,
central component. Um, I mean, we work with people and it just isn't there. They've lost trust. They've lost any sort of respect that they had for, the system that they find themselves trying to navigate. And I mean, see it every day. It's just, we see people who want to engage. All right, so they want to engage and they want to get treatment. That should be seen as a positive thing.
yeah.
However, I see, I guess, all the time, really, I see people missing. There's like a window of opportunity that they've got where they are looking for some sort of positive engagement. And that sort of window of opportunity might be there for a couple of weeks where they want to start treatment or they want to do something. And I think I've seen loads of people who are looking for like a residential placement, whether that be rehab or what it is that they're looking for. The timeframes don't really match. The decision
Mm.
making time frame that a service takes to react to that doesn't match with the person's will, if that makes sense.
Wow. So what you're saying is like, say for example, I say I'm ready for some help,
Yeah,
and then you have to go through your protocols, right?
yeah,
And the
yeah,
protocols take longer than the window of opportunity. So by the time you come back to me after meeting all of your protocols, I'm like, I don't even, you can't even find me. I'm gone now
yeah. Or it might be that they just feel that they've been let down and that
because
the
it's taking
system.
so long. It's taking
So
so.
the way it normally works is that if you go to your local authority and ask for, let's just say, access to rehab,
Wow.
they'll take your caseworker will take your case to the an MDT meeting. So that's a multidisciplinary team meeting.
Wow.
But they only happen so depending on the service depends when that meeting might happen. So it could be every second Thursday at 1 o'clock that they meet, right? So you might go to them the Monday before that, and what's that? That's like 5, 6, but 9 working days before a decision would be made on that. They don't speak to the client. The decision's made with
Interesting.
any of their input, and it's either yes or no. They don't tend to give. In my experience, might be different, but in other cases, but in my experience, a decision is made, and it might be just said, "Oh, they've said no to the funding." If they say yes to the funding, you get put in a bit of a waiting list as well. So it could take anything up to 3 to 6 months, really, for that point.
Wow. So
So
can I tell you a story about my own personal experience
yeah,
about this? So you want to talk about the window of opportunity. Years ago, obviously, I've been in recovery for almost 8 years. So years before I got stable recovery, I was in the hospital and they kept trying to convince me to go to rehab. Come on, go to rehab. And then finally I said, okay, I'll go to rehab, and I signed the paperwork. So I finally said yes. And literally everybody was on the call, like on these phones trying to get me in. There wasn't a place in Texas available. So I said yes. Within 24 hours, I was on a plane to Mississippi. Somebody was there to pick me up and drive me to rehab.
that's
That's
amazing.
that's what when we talk
Yeah,
about there is a window of opportunity, let's get them in when they finally agree to it.
yeah, and that's brilliant. It's I wish it worked like that here. Um, I think I guess it kind of leans into how I guess the bureaucratic nature
Mm.
of the public service in this country. Everything's kind of done slowly. I don't know. Sometimes I think to myself, well, that's the system. That's we can talk about what we want moving forward, and we can talk about our desires for a better way and stuff like that. But my advocacy service and how we work deals with the immediate what's in front of us kind of situation. So it's really hard to navigate. So I would say that if we're looking about how we create a system that values them at the early stage of change, it would be to start with that sort of trust and respect, but also what you were saying there, Calliese, was about how quick you got
Yeah.
your treatment. So quicker access and earlier interventions from services might prevent clients from sort of falling away or just like feeling like it's useless. I mean, these are the people that are here to help me, and doesn't feel to some of the clients that we work with that it's actually a positive experience. But it also things like I guess quicker allocation of caseworkers,
Mm.
development of proper care plans with goals and aspirations, but disengagement built into the plan. Eh, and that would involve the client getting the treatment that they're looking for. I've met people who, not very many of them, but I've met a few clients who have been engaging with services for like 10 years,
Wow.
but nothing's just like a meeting. They go to a meeting every 2 weeks or whatever, and nothing else really comes of it. So that's weird, but seems to be that there's a significant amount of people in Scotland anyway who are just existing on a sort of merry-go-round of service engagement with for years without significant or positive movement. So I guess that's part of part of our work is to try and like kind of stop that for people and ensure that they can get sort of off of that, because it's it's kind of tough for us as well, Sometimes I
Yeah.
sit here and I think, I feel useless, and I think that's just the nature. You want to help anybody that comes
I
here,
think
and
I
if
it's just it also makes me think too, like I just want to say kudos to you, Alan, and the work you do because I'm sure, like you said, sometimes you feel helpless and you're like, but you want to do, it's like what you want to do for people sometimes is what's not really realistically possible. So on one hand, you're like in the middle of like wanting to do all you can to support somebody, and then you're over here, you're like, oh, well, actually, I can only do,
yeah,
and that has to be
yeah.
really, I personally saying kudos to you because
Well, thank you. The first thing that I actually say to, um, I don't know if I still say it, but I used to sort of do a variation of, I can't promise that we'll be able to do anything for you,
wow.
you know,
But at
and
least
that's shocking.
but at least you're being
But
honest and transparent in your
yeah,
communication by saying that. Like you're
yeah,
not setting a standard. You're not promising everything. You're saying,
yeah.
This is the reality."
But what I do promise people is we'll do what we can for you, and we'll try our hardest to sort of achieve what it is that you're looking to achieve together, and that's important as well. It's about doing it, walking with them, and getting them involved in advocacy as well. Like, see, whenever I do like a service complaint or a complaint to like somebody like the Scottish Public Service Ombudsman, I always sit with the client and we come up with a complaint together.
Mm,
It's just very important to have that sort of that level of involvement for them because they feel like they own a part of that as well. So it's quite powerful, actually.
yeah. And then I would hope that they would feel heard and seen and acknowledged in those spaces
Yeah,
too.
I
That,
think that's part of it. They've been told for years, like in some cases, what not to do and how not to do it, and this is what you're going to do, and
oh
this
wow,
is how
that
you're
sounds
going to.
really, you know, um, believing in people. Really, that sounds kind of fear-based more
Yeah, yeah.
rather
So
than
we try and
believing.
remove that. I think we try and get them as involved in it as we can, and even making complaints is a, we make a lot of them. So having someone who has never really had agency over their
Mm,
own kind of pathway and their own treatment, quite powerful when you get them involved in that because you kind of see a renewed sense of hope. Oh well, making a complaint, I didn't know I could make a complaint,
wow.
and that's
Wow. I
yeah.
didn't
I
know
a
I
lot
could
of
make a
people.
complaint.
Yeah,
People aren't
I've
aware
heard.
that they can make a complaint.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
I had a guy who wanted to make a complaint. Well, he didn't know he wanted to make a complaint, but he came to us and sort of reported that he had faced a terrible situation at a rehab
Wow.
that he was in. And he's like, he's just telling me. And I said, you realise you can take this to places like the care inspectorate and, and you can get them at least an investigation. And he's like, nobody's ever told me that I could do something like that. And I'm like, of course you can complain. So a lot of it's about education. If you don't know that there's a process there, nobody's ever told you that there's a process there, well,
Wow. Interesting. I think that's important though to be transparent. Like, if anything goes wrong, if you're not happy with any of our services, that you can always like
yeah,
say so here. That's good for general services, I would think.
yeah, I know. I don't get me wrong, and we do hear a lot of caseworkers and saying if you're not happy with your treatment, you can make a complaint. But some folk don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So, with the Favor UK, there's a right to recovery bill. We're talking about advocacy. Whenever y'all talk about the right to recovery, right to access, right to support, what do you mean when you say right? What are we talking about? What's the right to
I
recovery?
think it's basic meaning. It means that you're trying to like enshrine recovery in law. So governments, in that respect, the Scottish government should be. There must be a legal recognition that there's a right there for people to access treatment So it's kind of enshrined in law the way that healthcare in it. That's it's the you've got the right to, it covers it in things like the Human Rights Act and European Convention on Human Rights, that people have got a right to life.
Right to
People
choice.
right to choice, yeah. Prohibited. I think one of them's like a right to the prohibition of discrimination. So it's like
Yeah.
healthcare services need to provide care that isn't based in discrimination, if you get what I mean. So
Yeah.
I know Anne Marie's been working really hard on that, and she has done for the past couple of years. But there's the whole. I think there's like there needs to be something kind of done that, like, I guess it involves a bit of political will to get that kind of over the line and get it. But and there's also like you'd need to sort of marry up a lot of the systemic and cultural issues as well, I guess, that would help to address that. It's all very well putting something in law, but systems need to change as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic bill, and it gives people the it's sort of human rights based as well. So it's maybe something that's been needed for
Long
years.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if recovery is a right, what responsibilities do institutions and communities hold to make recovery real? Like,
Um, so I think there's obviously a negative perception in some areas of society about what a drug or alcohol addict is. Um, I think we would have to look at things like trying to kind of more focus on the human than
humanness, yeah.
humanness. Yeah, as I said, public health. It's a public health emergency. It should be treated in the same way that other conditions are, with the same type of humanity. And so, if somebody's like experiencing a health issue, uh,
Yeah.
there isn't so much negative language, or there isn't negative language towards them, but you hear all the time when somebody's got an addiction, the
Oh,
names that they
yeah.
get called, or there's a kind of, I'm not saying everybody, but there's a general sort of sense that that has been something that they chose to do. So
Hmm.
kind of like it's their own doing. So why should we spend money trying to help them? That's a rotten position to take, because um, it's really problematic when it comes to that sort of language for people. At the end of the day, everybody's human. Nobody chooses addiction, do they? It's
And it just makes me think too. I was thinking about like if somebody goes to the doctor and they get diagnosed with cancer, they're going to adapt the treatment to the individual. They're going to get the treatment needed. They're going
yeah,
to pivot that where, my son was having stomach pain, then it turned out he needed his appendix taken. And it's like like, okay, this is happening to the individual. So let's fix it, come up with solutions. Whereas,
yeah. I know, and I think there needs to be also a recognition that anything that's sorry offered in the respect of treatment and rights based sort of treatment, it should be sort of flexible as well, non-linear. Yeah,
adaptable. Yeah, adaptable. Like based on, oh, okay, this is working. Oh, we tried this. This isn't working. So let's,
yeah,
look at our other options.
yeah. That's it. And as I mean, you used something, obviously used cancer there as an example of
Sure.
health. So there is like things people go through. Obviously, they cycle through stages of change with that
Yeah.
condition and illness, and so I think there needs to be a recognition that that would that would help as well. So yeah, in terms of, I think the if we did you it was about like ensuring recovery is recognised as a
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sorry, excuse me.
You're good.
Um, yeah, so I think I touched on things like ensuring it's enshrined in law, but also coming from a human rights based approach and anti-discrimination laws. But these sort of things already like they don't exist as such. But you'd think by this point in time, it would be something that would have been done. I find it really strange that we apply human rights to other sort of things, and we doesn't really seem to get talked about in the addiction sector. But I think, in that sense, that's where Anne Marie has been quite vocal, and she came up with that bill as well. So hopefully it can get, something can happen with that, because I think it would make the sector, at least, it would push
Yeah.
it towards some sort of new path with better functionality. So
And I mean, and I think too, you said you're surprised about like when it comes to the addiction sector, but I think about, over the years we've seen mental health, right? There was now workplaces recognize mental health. Like mental health is commonly talked about. There's not as much stigma around it.
yeah,
Women in menopause, like that's being, so like we've gone through these movements with other things,
yeah,
yet we're still lagging in the addiction department.
yeah. I know, and in some cases as well, like workplaces, for example, have get policies that actually deal with mental
Mhm.
health,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and
And
how
around
to,
discriminating against mental health and things like that.
yeah.
Like, definitely. So I think it's very interesting because some of the things you talked about were trust and values, and dignity. How do we create systems that don't just see people, but actually value them in all of their stages? Like, and even whenever they're most, let's say, fragile. I mean, I don't like to call anybody fragile, but like in those more vulnerable states.
Um, I think you would probably start with looking at like how the current addiction sector is in terms of like the professional people that are working there as well. I think a lot of um, the time jobs I think should probably go to people with lived experience, or folk that are I'm not saying that every job should be staff with lived experience, but they're the sort of people that have had visible recovery. They're the people that folk in active addiction would trust. It would ferment a lot of trust. They've walked that journey. They would be able to, you know, I think it would be a different type of working as well. It would automatically be something that was full empathy and understanding.
Hmm. Yeah. And seeing the whole person, like whenever
Yeah.
and I think too, it just goes back to everybody has a story. Like people didn't choose to be homeless. No, I don't think, people don't choose to have bad things happen to them.
Yeah.
Like life situations happen to people, and why don't we just support them? Anyways,
Yeah, I
who
know. I
knows?
know.
Yeah. I think it is really interesting. So where do you see, because you do a lot of work with other organizations
Yeah.
and we've talked about supports, where do you see the biggest gaps between policies on paper and the reality of people trying to access support?
Um, I think the biggest gap would be between what currently exists in statutory treatment, sort of, and actual clients. I think the system at the moment is quite rigid in how it would treat somebody. So it's sort of square pegs and round holes type situation. That's
Can
like,
you elaborate a little bit more? What do you mean by that?
have you never heard that saying before?
No, I've heard the saying before, but you said the system's kind of rigid in how it treats people.
Yeah, yeah. So everybody, when I guess certainly in our experience as a advocacy organisation, it seems to be that people are treated as a sort of a block. Really, it's one size does fit
Oh yeah.
all
Yeah.
in that sense. So as I say, we can only talk about it from my perspective and what I've experienced, where if they actually looked at the individual and spoke to them about maybe what they would like to do, because not everyone wants the same
Yeah, of course.
sort of thing. So they would, often or not, it would be come here every 2 weeks for a meeting, do this, do that, work within the community. Generally, working within the community would involve them telling somebody to just either go to a meeting, NA or A, whatever, or like link them into some sort of third sector organisation. That's brilliant. That's good. But we've met plenty of clients that don't want to go to meetings,
Yeah. Hey,
who
I see it all the
don't,
time.
yeah, who don't want to necessarily link in with a third sector organisation that they feel doesn't really meet what it is they're looking for.
Mm.
So it's probably just about getting to know the individual as well. Like services should really be taking time to get to know them and what it is that they like, and identifying creative areas where they can maybe do something that's a bit left field rather than just telling somebody to continue on in the community, or attend a sort of predetermined group that caseworkers have referred people to for years. But I
Yeah.
say I can only come at it from the experience of Favour UK and what we've looked at. I'm sure that there's places out there and services out there that do good work like that and do sort of.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I like that too. And that is more, what does it look like just to have conversations? And you really highlight that relational aspect and everything you've talked about, that relational aspect around like seeing people, what do they care about? What's just
yeah,
have conversations with people. It's
yeah, I know.
personal.
And I think when you do that, you can identify quite radical solutions really for people. We worked with a guy who was a musician,
Mm,
played guitar. That was his passion. Um, his service had referred him to countless sort of community recovery cafes and stuff, and it just wasn't really fitting. Him, he didn't enjoy it, and I was like, well, we could look at some kind of music therapy, and that's what we did.
yeah,
We
that's
referred him to
amazing.
I think it was Nordoff Robbins, isn't it, that do
Yeah.
that, and that was like brilliant. He loved it, and that was the start of him really starting to sort of move in a positive direction because it was something he wanted to engage with, it's something that he knew, and it was something that he was like really positive about. He looked forward to it and stuff like that. So there needs to be an element of that in it as well, I think, at least.
Pathways, multiple
Yeah.
pathways. Actually, I just heard too that there's an organization doing in Scotland, and they're supporting people in recovery to learn how to become DJs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. She told me about it the other week, and I was just, but like really, where they can like be DJs, and they're supporting them and teaching them how to be DJs, and I just was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow,
There's
that's amazing. Like people in
more and
recovery,
more of that sort of cropping up as well, and it's brilliant.
just options, different strokes for different folks, you
Yeah,
know.
that's it.
Um, how like I guess actually, if you could redesign outreach from the ground up, what would be the non-negotiable principles of that?
That's a question. If I could, well, I think, give me, obviously the if I could like design it and
You get to design it. Alan, it's Alan, you're rebuilding what outreach looks like from the ground up. What are going
what
to
would
be
be,
what are going to be the foundational principles that
um,
are there no matter what? No matter what we
oh, yeah,
do,
okay.
this is it.
Well, it needs to be person centered, respecting lived experience and the trauma that's sort of led to where they are. Well, I think true outreach should always be about empowerment.
Empowerment, yeah.
Yeah. So like it's about. I guess we've talked about meeting people where they are. It should always involve an element of that, and that's where I guess the community aspect and community work that goes into things like setting up recovery networks and cafes and that sort of stuff. That's where I think that's brilliant. But you kind of put me in the spot with that. I'm not really sure what else
I
I
know,
could
because it
say.
is kind of like if you think about principles, like some of the things you've talked about, I'd probably say autonomy, choice,
Yeah, yeah,
um, looking at, I think there's something about looking, especially within your work, sometimes people may be in different vulnerable situations where it's looking at what's strong about them versus what's wrong with them.
yeah,
So being like, you know what, the fact you showed up today, we're on the road.
yeah.
We're on
That's
the road, like we're
I know.
going somewhere. The fact you said this is what you want, great. Thank you for being
Yeah,
able to communicate that to me.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
That's good.
I
Yeah,
don't know. It also makes me think about, we talk about celebrating and like acknowledging every moment. An ant
yeah,
takes the tiniest steps, but guess what? It moves. The ant still moves, and we could celebrate every single step somebody takes in the right
yeah.
direction.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah,
So like acknowledging that. I think I think too, there's something around like we can all have a role. I think whether we realize it or not, if we work in this or in this field, if we're family members impacted, I think we can all play a role in some
yeah.
of the things you've talked about. So like listening, conversations, dignity, believing people, seeing people. What would you say are simple things we can all start to do to better support?
Um, as you say, maybe be always. I think just always make sure that you're coming at it from a position of understanding, non-judgment, um, just making sure that you're listening, but listening, active
Yeah.
listening.
Like hearing what's really being
Yeah,
said
yeah,
and
yeah,
what's not
yeah,
being said, etc.
yeah. Just committing time to someone as well, like
Being present,
being present and
holding space. Yeah.
having just whenever somebody needs you, I think just be there for them and try and understand. Even if you don't fully understand what addiction is, you can understand that somebody's going through a horrible situation and that it's impacting like every area of their life. So just kind of like being there in that moment and making sure that people feel comfortable and talking to you and opening up. So that's the answer to that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
Um, what do you like, what would it look like if every person had the right to be seen? Not just in a crisis, but like throughout in general. Like you said, it's not just a crisis situation. What do you think that would look like if every person was seen and acknowledged?
Um, it'd be better. I think but that would require sort of a wider sort of community understanding of the issues that people go through. And I'm not even talking about addiction at this point. It's like just anything that somebody's going through or challenges that people might face. I think just understanding that people live lives that are, they don't want to be living in the respect of they're in a situation that they're desperate for change. So I think having that sort of whole village approach to understanding an issue would make society better anyway, strengthen resilience within communities as well. I think that's my understanding of the question.
Yeah, 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 definitely. I'm curious, can you share a story from your experience of working where it really highlights what is possible when we show up for people? Because you have had tons of stories and I'm sure you have tons of experiences, but I think that just by like,
Yeah, okay. I need to be careful here with names and
yeah,
stuff,
be very careful. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
locations and how to approach this. So we we started working pretty much straight away with an individual who was like, I think it took us 3 sessions to sort of get to what was going on. A horrible, horrible, horrible situation. She wasn't getting the support or treatment that she needed. She was like I can't even begin to tell you how bad her situation was, Calliese. It was horrific. We worked with said individual for about a year and a half to 2 years to try and at least get somewhere. But the whole her whole case was like mismanaged. It was um, complaints went in. We just complained non-stop. She was getting promised stuff from caseworkers, and then the caseworker would disappear. She'd get a
Okay.
new caseworker. So we went through 4 caseworkers with this individual
Wow.
in the year and a half to 2 years that we worked with her. Each came in and started right at the beginning of the case. Do you know what I mean? So there was no continuity of like service provision, if you want to call it that. The individuals involved in a couple other services that wasn't really related to was related to addiction, but it was sort of separate. So we spent years, a year and a half, 2 years, advocating for this woman to get the support that she needed. And it was personally, it had the effect that that had on me was terrible, it was traumatizing actually. Um, we managed to get her a couple of things that didn't want. She wanted rehab, right? But she went through, and we advocated for her for rehab from the very beginning. But she went through various other residential placements, so stabilisation or detox. It was always a detox or stabilisation. It was like, that's great, but that's not what she wanted. But they were
Yeah.
doing that, and they weren't saying, "Well, we'll get you stabilisation, we'll get you into rehab." So we continued. We were fighting with services and service managers like for ages, and nothing was getting done. It was like it just felt like we were stuck in the mud, really. And at this point, she's getting worse, and we had to ask for them to send um, like care plans and stuff to us. They never had them. Bearing in mind the women had been engaging with the service for probably about 5 years, more. But
Wow.
her time at that point should have been sort of 5 years at that point, I guess, trying to get what she wanted. Um, it was only, I think, we got to a point where we had to try and arrange like meetings and stuff with everybody that was involved in her care. At that meeting, there was like 16 other professionals in the room. That's just how many people from other organisations, from other areas that were involved in her care, but none of them had been sort of talking to each other. And like it was all the work that was getting done with her was in isolation, if you get what I mean. You know,
Oh my
so
goodness. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, of course I get what you mean.
so we represented her at this meeting, and eventually we managed to get a decision. And it was 2 years after we started working with her that we managed to get her into rehab. And that there is still, I think that's one of the proudest moments of my life.
I bet you cried. Like,
I did, but also like see the emotional come down for that. I I couldn't do anything for about 2 days. I was exhausted, but like at least I knew she was going to be all right. And I count her now as she's a good friend of mine, so it's it's great, and you should see her. Like, honestly, wow,
change.
just
I
incredible.
think I think that just goes to show that like, I don't know, don't give up on people. And you know, I think even as individuals, I'll say for myself, you know how I feel how good it feels when you know somebody's got your back. And that's what I'm sensing is like you let people know we've got your back. Like we are
Yeah,
in this. We are in this together. Can't promise you anything, but we've got your back. And I think that
yeah,
that's not really highlighted enough because it can be a lonely journey. It can, let's be honest, it can be very lonely. You can
yeah,
feel like giving up. You can feel like nobody sees you, nobody hears you. And I think that y'all just continue to highlight, look,
yeah.
we've got your back. We've got
I
your back.
mean, and in that lady's case, I don't know. I sort of think about it sometimes, and I didn't really expect a positive outcome for that. I was always expecting a phone call,
Wow.
which never came, thankfully. Um, so yeah, that's the one case I think that if I never done another bit of work in this sector, I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life. I think that
Aw.
that story in particular. So
Yeah. And I think
it's
it
just
even just reminds you, you in your professional capacity, like don't give up on hope. Like don't give up until what's that saying? Don't give up before the miracle happens. Like
yeah,
that's it. Um, and I think too, like that just really highlighted how like little small interactions, can really like just keep showing up, being there can make a huge
yeah,
impact.
yeah. I
And
know.
it's just look what happens when you rally together and that support. Amazing. So, Alan, what advice would you leave people with from today's conversation? If you could tell me three things that I can apply to going forward, what would they be?
I guess just never underestimate the power that hope has for an individual. I've seen it so many times that I know people are struggling, and but there's always hope. And get advice. That's a big one for me as well. If you're struggling, get advice. Just try and get in contact with somebody. There's always people there that are willing to help. And I don't know, really, the third one. What else can I say? And just keep trying. That's what we do. We just got to keep trying, and hopefully people start to find themselves in a better place. And that's, I guess, I'm not really good at stuff like that, I'm sorry, but
No, you're good. I think
that's
it's really like something else you highlighted too is I've always told people, because some people don't believe in themselves sometimes, and I'm like, just can you believe that I believe in you?
mm,
So like even though you may not believe in yourself, can you believe and people can believe that I believe in them. And it's like I'll believe in you until you're ready to believe in yourself and like
yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah,
just not giving up on people.
yeah,
Just and I always go back to like, it's easy for people to dismiss others, but I'm like, that's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's mother. That's somebody's
yeah.
friend.
I know,
Like
I
these are
know.
people with lives that are capable of so much more.
Yep,
Just remember that at the end of the day, too. Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So, Alan, anything else you'd like to say before we finish off? Thank you so much.
No, no problem at all. No, it's nice to see you again, Calliese, and thanks for having me on. I guess. Huh?
Yeah, definitely.
And I hope, I do hope that people if people watching this and that they've managed to get something from it as well. Don't think I'm generally good at this sort of stuff, but I try.
Oh,
So
you're good. Hey, look
yeah,
at that. Like just like we're talking about show up and just see people. Look, you just show up and
yeah,
see people. Literally, that's it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even though it's, if if it's a little out of your norm, that's okay. We're good.
So, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. No, but really
Well,
enjoyed chatting to you today.
of course. And thank y'all. And if y'all need any advocacy support, got any resources or support to help Alan and the team out, please send them over. They'll take all the help they can get. And
Definitely.
yeah, have a good one. Thank
You
y'all.
too. Thanks, Calista. Take it easy. Bye.
Yeah, of course. Bye.